Okay, that wasn't exactly Roethlisberger, Peyton Manning, but it is Monday Night Football. Just finished watching. Nice little win for the Steelers on the road. Probably still not going to be 500 for the first time in Mike Tomlin's career, but, an entertaining finish. Let's dive into the game. Okay, my initial reaction, like most people, when Jim Irsay went with Jeff Saturday, was shock, awe, jaw hit the floor. Then, if you listen to the podcast, I kind of push back against the crazy overreaction because at the end of the day, he's just an interim coach. He's not the full-time guy. Who cares? The team was terrible. And then they beat the Raiders. It was actually pretty impressive. And now they've lost 2 games in a row. But tonight, I got to be honest, at the end of the game, was pretty embarrassing. He is not the offensive play caller, and he's obviously not the defensive play caller. So when he's on the sideline, a lot like Mike Tomlin, he's the CEO. Game management, which I've always defended a little bit, is probably a lot more difficult while you're at the game on the sideline and the clock's ticking than those of us on the couch eating some Cheetos, feet up, drinking a Gatorade. Right? It 100% is, because consistently during the NFL, the history of watching football, college and pro, coaches struggle with calling timeouts, end of game and end of half situations. But tonight, with Matt Ryan on the third down play, or I guess it was second down play, when he takes off running and gains, 2 yards short of the first down or whatever, one, he's not an athlete relative to athletic quarterbacks. So he's probably a little gassed in that situation. You got 3 timeouts. You're down a touchdown. You're close to the red zone. To me, that's a pretty basic call timeout, take a breather. But I think Jeff Saturday got really greedy there. And to me, got greedy for what? Like, you got 3 timeouts. If you had 1 timeout, I understand pushing the limits. But I think that crossed the line of all of us sitting on our couch universally going, call timeout, man, to like, bro, why did you not call timeout there? That's a pretty basic timeout. Matt Ryan gassed on the ground, get up, you waste a bunch of time, and then you get stuffed, and then ultimately on 4th down, you don't get it done. So you end the game, you go to the locker room a loser with multiple timeouts. I never understand this. Listen, you always want to conserve your timeouts, right? In the first and early on in the second quarter. Same thing with the third and middle way through the fourth quarter. Sometimes it's unavoidable. A delay a game situation, maybe a defensive breakdown where a guy's wide open, it could lead to an easy touchdown. Obviously, there are times when you have to blow a timeout in a half or, in the second half when you ideally don't want to do. And then there are situations like tonight where you didn't need to go to football coaching school, which in the NFL or college is basically just becoming an assistant and working your way up. If you've just been a part of the game, obviously Jeff Saturday is, he's a several-time Pro Bowler. Like, I thought that was a pretty basic one. Like, you're just sitting there looking at your team. Clearly he's gassed running it down, and you don't call a timeout. Makes no sense. So while I did defend the overreaction, calling those guys a little over the top, everyone that went nuts when Jeff Saturday was hired, because, like I said, he's the interim head coach. This team sucks. Who actually gives a shit? Tonight, that's pretty embarrassing. Like, there might have been guys that if you just elevated on the staff who could have seen, hey, we might need to call a timeout. And then on the flip side, the Steelers, like, ultimately, if you weren't a diehard Colts fan, a diehard Steelers fan, which obviously there's a lot. They're one of the biggest brands in the league. Actually, the Colts sneaky have a big fan base too for being a smaller market team. Or just a diehard NFL fan, I have to do this. I would watch Monday Night Football no matter what, but I was more locked in tonight knowing that I got to record a podcast than I would have been if I didn't. I mean, that game was pretty tough to watch. The Colts aren't a very entertaining team, and the Steelers, just aren't very good. Now, they do have a lot of good players. And on a bright note, I'm going to be positive here for a second. You guys know Mac Jones-type players aren't my cup of tea. I like guys with athletic and physical attributes. It's why I like Justin Fields. I wanted the 49ers to take Justin Fields. Said they took Trey Lance, and they love Mac Jones. I was like, just take this guy who's a 5-star recruit, Georgia, Ohio State. Don't outthink the room here. But I will say one thing about Kenny Pickett. His arm might be a little bit better than I thought, but he's actually a pretty good athlete. I thought, because he's been compared a lot to like a poor man's Mac Jones, I think he moves around a lot better than Mac. So there was an athletic maybe attribute to his game. Not that you didn't see it in college, because you remember the Pittsburgh run where he kind of did the Allen Iverson and he juked a guy, or he fake slid and then he went right by him. They've actually changed that rule. But it's another thing to do it in the NFL. And Indy has a good defense. They have a fast defense. And he made some plays tonight with his legs where you went, okay, I see something. And one thing the Steelers have done historically well is draft, right? That's one thing they've always hung their hat on. Offensive skill guys never having an issue with it. Hell, they traded Chase Claypool, and clearly they don't skip a beat. Thompson's good. Obviously, George Pickens has a lot to work with. Najee got hurt. I love Najee Harris. Though the backup is not a bad player. Like they will draft skill guys. That will not be the issue. Defensively, they clearly have never had a problem building the defense. So to me, if they can keep building around this guy, can they become somewhat like the Patriots have become around Mac Jones? It's not going to be pretty football. It's not going to be the most entertaining brand of football. It ain't going to be like Roethlisberger in his heyday with some of those defenses, but maybe they can compete that way. Now, you could push back if you wanted to argue with me, if you were a Bengal fan, if you were a Raven fan, be like, well, you better build up a damn good team because we got Lamar, we got, Joe Burrow, and that's going to be their problem. The gap with their quarterback, even his ceiling compared to Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson is pretty wide. And here's the thing. Mike Tomlin is an incredible leader, incredible just head coach. His resume speaks for itself. But once you don't have the sweet talent at quarterback, the schematics become so much more important. And Tomlin's not the OC, and he's obviously not the defensive coordinator. He's going to be very dependent moving forward on his coaching staff and on his coordinators being awesome. Look at John Harbaugh. One thing they've had over the years is Greg Roman, excellent at scheming for a running quarterback. Wink Martindale has been awesome. For whatever reason, he let him go, and now they got this guy, McDonald, who was Harbaugh's guy. Actually, he was John Harbaugh's guy. Then he went to Jim, and they haven't been quite as good, and it's kind of impacting their team. So when you're going to be the CEO head coach and your quarterback is not going to be a Hall of Fame guy, you better get really good coordinators. That just has to happen. So I do think Mike Tomlin this offseason, you should be confident that your organization, you know how to develop, you know how to draft, you know how to bring guys that even have failed at other teams and then have success with you. The Steelers have a long history of doing that with several GMs over the years. To me, the key now is going to be his coaching staff and really doing a deep evaluation, because they're going to have to out-coach and out-scheme. They're not always going to be able to out-talent because the big fella ain't walking through those doors anymore.